All right, this is JP the Raw photo review number 32. And tonight we're moving to a new month. We're moving to June. So we're slowly catching up there, AD. Slowly catching up. Before we start, let's do what we always do, go over how to enter. And two ways. You can go to jpraw.com/contest. Click on one of the buttons. Again, this month is going to be, where am I going? Right? That way. Nope. That way. There you go. Again, this month is going to be open for August, and you can do either the regular group or the beginners group. And if you're in Facebook, the easiest way, I know not everybody's in Facebook, but if you're in Facebook, the easiest way is right down at the links below, or the links directly into our Facebook group, where you can enter that way. And the post with the album is always pinned to the top of the group. So you just go out there, find it, enter that way, or you can upload them here. If you upload them from our website, there is a 2 meg limit. So you do need to shrink the file a little bit to get it to fit down to 2 meg to upload it. If you have trouble with that, email me at podcast@jpraw, and I will help you with it and find a way around it for you if you need help. Also, let's do one more thing. If you want to subscribe to the show, go over to jpraw.com/subscribe, and you can have all the ways there to subscribe on iTunes, large and small, video, large and small, YouTube, and Vimeo. Easiest if you're watching us live right now on YouTube is just to subscribe and click that little bell so you get the alert, and then you can see when we go live and see when I post it. All right.
Cool.
So we got it out of the way on how to enter.
Enter,
yes. And I should say that there was a lot of entries for June. So if we don't go over your image tonight, don't worry. We're actually going to do two more of just June. So we got quite a few to go over. So I'm splitting them in threes. So don't worry if we don't do yours tonight. All right, AD, let's get right into it and get to the first image.
I just want to mention Mike, show 32 is finally reached my age, 32.
Wow. You're 32?
I'm kidding. No, I wish.
Don't we all? Or don't you
I'm
and
perpetually
don't
32.
You and I. Yes. You had me there for a little bit because, I'm bad sometimes with ages, and I wasn't going to question you on 32.
I am really old. I am a lot older than you are. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Well, that's for a different. Yes, it does suck getting old. It does suck getting old. But we get more knowledge, AD, as we go.
Sure. All right. All right.
All right. So let's get to the first image, and this one is from Norman Schultz. And Norman says, going macro, and he went macro with a Tamron 18-400. Wow. Yeah. He says he loves the water drops, and we're doing the beginners group right now. I should say we're going to do 3 in the beginners group. So this is from the beginners group. Love the little water drops on the ends of the needles. Trying testing to see what the Tamron is capable of. ISO 400. He gives us some stats there. Yeah. He's about 3 feet away, maybe less.
Okay.
And
cool.
I guess this is, what does he say? I guess it's like pine needles or something.
Yep.
A little new growth from pine needles. So, I like this one from a standpoint of the colors and everything. I'm having trouble focusing on what is the thing to focus on.
Exactly. So the reason why that's happening is because in the center of the focus, in the center of the photo, we're kind of out of focus because it's the back part of the actual needles, and then the needles are sticking out at us. So it's making kind of a ring, and that's causing our eyes to kind of dart around the photo. So I like the colors too. I'm with you on that. I think that's very cool. The processing that he did, it has a very fresh look to it. That light green is awesome. Let's talk about, since it's in the beginner group, and I want to go through these quick because we've got three weeks of this and a lot of stuff to cover. Norman, awesome that you're experimenting. Let me give you a couple of hints with the lens that you're using and the way that you're using it. So you have a Tamron 18-400, and you shot this at 225 millimeters at 1/25th of a second, which is a little slow for, usually the rule is 1 over whatever the millimeters is. So for a steady shot. Now you did really well. It might have been on a tripod and then it doesn't matter. But if you're handheld, you would have want to have that at 1/200th of a second to make sure you didn't have any blurries in there. And I mentioned that because at f7.1 ISO 400. It looks like you had plenty of light here. I don't see any noise in the photo to speak of, hardly at all. I'm wondering if we could have gotten you maybe to f11 or f16 to bring a little bit more depth in. So that middle area that's out of focus, we could have seen that red area maybe a little bit more in focus, because that red and green looks really well. And then your water droplets, the real focal point that you were that made you press the shutter button, as I always ask for, that would have been a little bit more defined. So we would have had kind of an area to go to. So what Mike's talking about, and I see it too, and I'm pointing at my screen. I know this doesn't help you, but if you look at around like a circle, you can see that the tips of they kind of go a dart around in a circle,
Right.
But then where your eye is naturally attracted towards the center of an image as the starting point, it's kind of blurred out, and there isn't a composition there to draw us to a point. And so if your focus was the water drops, I would concentrate on how can I isolate those water drops and really bring that out more so than just taking the picture at the end. Maybe you do more of a profile of this. So so you're on the side of the branch and it comes across the screen a little bit more. That's going to give us better depth, along with going to like f11 or f16 and maybe using a flash or bringing a nice LED light. If you're using a tripod, this is a really cool thing you can do. Bring a bright LED flashlight, which you can get for basically almost nothing these days. Put your camera on a tripod. If it's not windy out, they make a thing called a plamp.
From Wimberley, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, it's a plant clamp, and it holds the branch so that it can't move around in the wind, so you can take a photo of it. So you'd have it, your tripod there, and what you would do is maybe take a longer shutter speed. Now maybe we could get it down to maybe 1/6 or 1/8, but you can use that flashlight to put some light on it in different angles, and then you can layer them in Photoshop so you can get all the light the way that you want to on the entire thing with a slower shutter speed or a more closed down aperture, which is going to give us a bigger depth of field focus. Bigger depth of focus, not depth of field. So I think we need to see more of it in focus. I think that's really the thing here to get the composition right. So just remember all of that. If you're handheld and you got this without any blurriness,
that's incredible.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
I find I know that rule is the 1 times the focal length, and for me it's actually a little bit more. If I don't have VR.
Depends on the day.
I'm finding that I'm getting a little shakier as I get older. So where I used to be able to do that, I need a little more now.
And a lot of people, you can prop your elbow up against your stomach when you shoot and stuff, but it's still pretty tough to do. You're still breathing. Your body's moving. You're thinking about focus. I mean, even if you move your hand to do focus or anything like that, or any adjustment on the camera. So.
All right. Up next is this image from Daniel Sandberg.
Hey.
Yes. And whoops, hold on, let me move to that. Milky Way over Howick, South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And without him telling me that, I wouldn't have known that because, the Milky Way, it looks the same wherever you're at.
Yep.
And so that gets right into it. Mike, go ahead and say what you're going to say, and then I'll say what I have on my mind.
He doesn't give us that information. I'm thinking that he included that thing on the lower right-hand corner intentionally. That for some reason Daniel wanted to include those lines of trees, and I don't know if that's a building or if that's what that is. I don't know that yellow streaks what that is. But I'm thinking and he somehow intentionally included that for some reason. I actually would like it if it wasn't there or wasn't at that angle. It's throwing me off.
Yeah. Well, angles, we've talked about it before. Harsh angles in an image give it tension. This is the Milky Way. I don't think we want tension in the Milky Way. It's supposed to be celestial and beautiful and kind of whisk you away into the stars, right? And so we got to be careful with our compositions when it comes to putting the Milky Way. And the Milky Way has been put in everything. I mean, you don't even type it into Google because It's everywhere. And the funny thing is, a lot of the photos that you see of the Milky Way are actually composites because it's very difficult to film the Milky Way clearly as well as the foreground clearly because of the way a camera works. It's not possible to focus close up and far away like this here. His bushes and things are out of focus a little bit, and the Milky Way is out of focus. I dare say he's probably focused somewhere in between that, or he's used some sort of noise reduction on here, which you often have to do. That's made that kind of look a little fuzzy as well. I love the Milky Way. I love capturing it. It's a very daunting subject without knowing the technical high-end stuff that you have to do. I've shot it several times, and I usually shoot my foreground separate from the Milky Way and then composite the two together because you need to get a lot of light into the camera fast for the Milky Way. The rule is a 20-second exposure or less, which is hard to do because light just doesn't get into your camera when it's dark, and it needs to be dark for the Milky Way to show up. So you usually have to shoot at with a f2.4 lens, or 2.8 lens. So I have like not a Tamron. I have a forget the name of it because it's in my bag and it only comes out when I shoot Milky Ways. And it's going to come out this month, actually, because this is the month for it. But it's basically a 12 millimeter 2.8 lens. That's all it does. And it's just made for shooting star shots. And so what I'll focus on is during the day, I'll figure out what my focus at infinity is, which, mind you, the little mark that's on your lens, which you'll see on just about any lens. Let me show you. It's that little 8 thing there. I don't know if you can see that. There you go.
It's out of focus.
Out of focus, of course, right there. It's that little thing right there.
Okay.
Looks like an 8 on its side. That's infinity. But on most lenses, if you put the little mark on that, it's not usually exactly there. So what I tell my students is to go out during the day and focus on something very far away, at least 300 or 400 feet away, and get focused during the day, and then make a little mark with tape on your. I'll put a mark across this way and put a line on it, and then I'll cut the tape so that way I know right where that
it is,
line. Yeah, right where it is. And so the thing is, you're in the dark, so you're not going to be able to see that line anyway without a flashlight. Other people around you are going to be annoyed if you're flashing a light all over the place.
Yes.
So this is just from experience. That'll get you your focus from far away. Then if you want to focus on the foreground, sometimes I'll shoot the foreground during the day and not move my camera until it's time to shoot the Milky Way. If I'm camped someplace, that's the way I'll do it. If I'm only at a place for a limited amount of time, I'll light paint the foreground using a flashlight. And I'll, let the people around me, if there's any other photographers around me who want to capture the shot, we'll do a 3, 2, 1 countdown thing and let them all get the foreground. Nice. And we'll use our flashlight to actually light up the foreground and focus on it, because that you can do, Milky Way. You can't light the Milky Way, unfortunately.
What, a flashlight? You can't do that?
Nope, doesn't work. It looks like 2 people in the lower part down here might be shining lights up, trying to make the laser beam lights. But yeah, so shooting the Milky Way, it's a lifelong study. I've been doing it now for about 10 years, and I still won't release my photos to anyone because I'm not there yet. I'm not getting it exactly perfect, and it's very hard to do. And you only get maybe 1 or 2 days a year to practice it. So, unless you're traveling around like, Tony did there and did the Galactic 50 thing. So,
and you have to be somewhere where there's not a lot of light pollution. Like, you can't be in a big city.
Right, which is I'm blessed with here. I can do it off my back porch if I want to, but it's you got to have clear skies. You got to have a lot of conditions have to be just perfect. So beyond all that, Daniel, I hope that helps you out a little bit. Yeah. As far as the composition goes, I think Rokinon, thank you. The man hit it right there perfectly. Jan hit it perfectly out there. Is that it's distracting in the corner. It's a bright spot in the corner. It looks like 3 aliens. I think that's cool. I think that could have been used maybe somehow, maybe tilting. And there might be something on the left that he was having problems with. I don't know. So without knowing the area, I can't really, all I can say is that maybe he tilted it like that because there was something on the left-hand side of the screen that he couldn't get rid of in the photo. And this is just where the Milky Way was. And, if you live in South Africa, then go another week and the Milky Way will be higher or lower depending, and if you're late, then you just mark it on your calendar for next year because, and I don't know, Mike, I've got a live stream coming up that maybe we can do together.
Okay.
I thought maybe this would be the first time we'll do something together, but I'm going to be talking about the 5 apps that every photographer needs to have on their mobile device.
I'd love to hear that.
And one of them has something to do with planning trips to get Milky Way shots. So
very interesting. Yeah, I'd like to hear that one.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the next one. And this one is from if I ever say you're new and you're not really new, feel free to email me and fuss at me. But I think that Harvey Arbor, is new. I don't remember him submitting before. And Harvey, if you're new and you haven't listened to us before, or even people who have listened don't do this, but later we're gonna come across Millen's entry, and Millen always does a good job of giving descriptions and giving the why he took the shot. And later in Millen's thing, you're going to hear just a little bit about why he took the shot. So that's what I would love to have known here is Harvey, what when you came across this, what made you want to take this shot?
Yeah, we say that all the time when you're leaving a submission, especially for the beginners, because I don't know what your level is. I don't know. Maybe you don't know about lenses or the techniques and that kind of stuff, or maybe you're looking for help with composition or whatever. And this show is really you get what you give. So if you're going to give me a photo, you're only going to get out of it. My opinion is, and no matter what you think, Mike, my opinion personally, I can tell you, is worth nothing. It's just my opinion, and you shouldn't go on that. So if you give me like, hey, I took this photo because I saw this bush growing out of the middle of this pond, and I just thought it was interesting the way the water was very smooth, and I wanted to capture. Then I've got something to go on, and I can say, okay, what did you get right here, and what maybe could you have done a little better? So I think that this shot. Let me talk about things I like about it. I like the color. I like the layers to it. I think it's got maybe a little bit too much background. I think maybe a little bit more wide open aperture would have bokeh out that background a little bit more and kept us really focused on the tree and the reflection and the beautiful water, because I think the true story here is like right in that lower thirds. I think that's great. And the reflection is beautiful on the water. There's a little detritus here and there in the water. I probably would have cloned some of that out because that's kind of a distraction. The log in the back is a big distraction for me that's laying on the ground because it's kind of a vertical or a horizontal line right through the other third. So it's kind of making a divisional line on half of your photo. Maybe moving this tree a little bit more to the left, keeping the horizon or the edge of the pond in the third, just like you did. That's perfect. And using a little bit more wide open aperture, and then this really would have become a piece of art at that point.
Yep.
So,
well, Harvey, thanks for entering, and we hope to see more entries from you. And next time, give us a little more feedback, so a little more why you took the shot, so that we can give you some feedback based on that.
Yeah, bring it on. I mean, and the more you give to me, if I can sift through it, you don't need to tell me like I was on vacation and that stuff, it's fine. But I always tell people, save that for your blog, put that in your blog or on your post. But for me, I like to know like what made you stop right there? What made you press the shutter button? And what made you process the image like you did? If, like add contrast or whatever, what were the reasons behind that? You should be thinking about that when you create your photos for other people to look at. You should be thinking, why am I boosting my contrast right now? Well, it might just be because I like contrasty photos. Okay, that's cool. That gives me something to go on. Now I know your style, so I'll almost discard that. I'd be like, that's what he likes. That's cool. Yeah. Let's talk about this then. So yeah, the more you give.
Cool. All right, that's it for the beginners group. And if we didn't remember, if we didn't show your photo, it's because we're going to do this over 3 shows. So if we didn't do it tonight, we'll do it one of the other 2 times. All right, moving into the regulars group. First up is this image from Drew Bryden. Drew Bryden.
It looks like Brian to me on my end.
Oh, yep. I think I have his name there on the thing that just came up online. So Drew Bryan, Bryan. So what I showed you at the bottom of the photo was wrong. It's Drew Bryan. All right. Or else I'm wrong here. Another Milky Way. He says, Milky Way photography can sometimes be a challenge with light pollution that is so prevalent in many areas. However, I will never forget the awe of the faces of the Japanese students who would stay with us when I was a teen. Most had never seen stars before. I guess because of so much light pollution there. Due to pollution. We are so blessed to have the stellar views we have here. I plan to return to this location on a clear night. Milky Way. This is a Milky Way over Martha's Vineyard that he took.
And there's a lot of light pollution here, actually.
Yeah, you can see it in the fork and out there in the background.
Yeah.
And I like how he's used the rocks and the pillars to guide us out there to the Milky Way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, Drew, make this into a portrait. Get rid of all the extra stuff on the sides. What is it actually doing for you out there? It's not really doing anything. The story is in the middle third of this entire image. It's just screaming to be cropped vertically here. There's not enough out there, or even a square crop is fine these days. I think that he brings up a good point about the pollution. And here's a good case of, again, where we got the foreground and the background. It looks like it's pretty well in focus. It's tough for me to really talk about Milky Way photos because I need to actually see the real photo and zoom in and look at it. Because when we take these photos and we show them to people, here's what'll happen. This happened to a student of mine, and I've told this story before, but I think it's worth retelling. A friend of mine met me in San Francisco. We went out on a beach. We went to this place called, I think it was like Shark Fin Bay. And there was these beautiful rocks that look like big shark fins. And we were there, and the Milky Way came right up over the top. And all my students were there, and they were freaking out. We're on a beach. It was great. And she came home. She was so happy. She posted the photo, and, she never zoomed in 1-to-1 on the photo, though. She just did her processing on her screen. She never zoomed in on it, and she posted it. And then one of her friends was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I want to buy this." And she says, "How much for a print?" And so she went and she told her, I can get it printed for you. We'll, set a price and all this kind of stuff. And the person was really excited. And she got the print back from the printers, and she got to look at it 1-to-1 and all the noise. And she thought the printer had done something wrong, and the printer did nothing wrong. It was just loaded with chromatic noise and all of these problems that don't show up on your computer screen until you go 1-to-1 and you see what it looks like in print. So that can happen to you. You got to be careful. You're going to get people who are going to see these photos and want to print. It's inevitable. It'll happen. But then you go to print, and you can't print them because of the processing or the way the photo was taken, and it's not really reversible. Yeah. So you got to be careful with focus and all that kind of stuff. I can't really tell that, but I really think with this image, it's a neat thing. The lights, they're okay. I mean, that's okay. It's part of the story there. The pier is part of man's creation, and then we have the sky above it. I think that all tells a nice story. I think just get rid of the sides, which really are not really lending anything to the story here. They're just kind of there.
That, and for me, I think I would have gotten rid of the red light.
I mean, it does draw your eye right to it. Yeah. And anybody who goes out there and shoots Milky Way, don't just look at your forecast and go, "Oh, it's going to be a clear night," or "It's not going to be a clear night. It says partly cloudy." Forget it, because some of the coolest photos I've seen with the Milky Way have had clouds in them. Mm-hmm. So if you go on YouTube, don't do it now because you're watching us. Go on YouTube and type in 8K Milky Way time lapse or 4K Milky Way time lapse and watch some of the time lapses of the Milky Way with clouds, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And anytime you add that atmosphere, it's going to make those lights glow in the background, but they're not going to be as harsh. I don't see anything wrong with the clouds being in this. I think they're a nice element, a kind of ethereal element there. But the red light does jump out at me.
Mm-hmm.
You could easily desaturate that light and just make it white. You don't have to delete it. You can just take the red out. You could actually probably drop most of the red out of this photo and it still would be fine because you're still going to have yellows and oranges in there. So you could just put your HSL slider on there and take the red right out.
Yep. Nice shot, Drew.
Yeah.
All right. Up next is Millen. So
hey,
Millen with this shot here. And let me read you what Millen says. This time the light, he calls it the light after every storm. All right. So he says, well, this time the light was just before the storm. But anyway, this was a walk I took at a nearby hill. The weather started to get better or worse. It depends on whether you're crazy like me and like to dance under the thunderstorm or prefer to be safe at home. I just took several clicks and this was one of the results. The people I was with were scared, so I had to rush down to a safer place. Here we go. And this is the part that helps us when you take this. What caught my attention and made me click were the lightnings in the back. But when I got home, so that was why he took this shot. There was lightning, probably, you can see the storm here, there's probably lightning in the background. But when I got home, I saw I didn't capture any of them. But there was light that was coming down the clouds and was lighting the fields with the flowers. So you can see that where the flowers are being lit with that. And I think, if you're just hand holding and taking shots, getting lightning is going to be tough.
Yeah. So the tried and true technique, put your, now do this at your own risk. Because I used to have a thing on my website and I took it down because people want to learn to shoot lightning. They'll learn it, how to do it. There are triggers that you can buy. There's all this crazy stuff. They work. Radio triggers work. But I will tell you that the most tried and true way to capture lightning, and I've done it off my front porch, is if you watch a radar screen, when the bright red stuff comes across your area, wait for it to pass, then go out and look in the direction that it's moving on the map. So if it goes by your house and it's moving west, and you just go out and you look west, where that red spot is where the two fronts are crashing together, causing the rain and causing the lightning will usually be in there with it.
Right. And
you can point your camera up there and you put it, you set it so you can get a 30-second exposure, and you just put your a shutter clicker on there and just open the shutter and let it go 30 seconds over and over and over and over and over again, and you'll get lightning every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's the safest way because the storm is past. But it's also, I say, do it at your own risk because lightning is one of those things that doesn't follow a lot of rules. So, or we don't know what the rules are. I'm sure it follows its own set of rules, but we don't know what they are fully. So, if you're going to do it, just be safe and use common sense. But it's very difficult to just go out and you can't really handhold. I've been in heavy lightning storms, tried to capture lightning on my cell phone, haven't been able to do it. I was in a heavy lightning storm one year. I was in a parking lot of a Kmart. I had my camera with me. I was like, this is amazing. I stuck my camera out, took one shot, and it had lightning in it. I'm like, how? How does that happen?
Luck.
It's exactly right. But if you use the 30-second method and you get your exposure so that at 30 seconds in the storm, because it's usually dark, will look good, you're going to get these nice smooth clouds, plus you'll capture every lightning strike during that 30 seconds that comes down will stay imprinted on your camera. So that's cool. But anyways, Millen, amazing photo. I love this. It's gorgeous. But I'm going to tell you, get rid of man out of this shot because man is ruining your shot right now with 2 telephone poles. And I would immediately just clone those puppies, tell them to take a hike because this is the wall hanger. I love shots like this. This is inspirational. It makes me want to be there, but I don't want to stand in front of those wires. I just want to take in that beautiful bay and those lights. So
and how the sun is hitting those flowers and the field of flowers. Yeah,
it's totally great. And he, and this is, I mean, Millen's, he can take it. So I know he can take it. I would just remove those two things, the two poles out of there. There's the T pole on one side, and especially the dark pole that's on the left there, right on the border in those lines. They're very easy to remove. I would just clone those out and get rid of them. You can do those right in Lightroom or Photoshop if you have either one of those, or GIMP will do it. Or even if you load it into your phone, you can actually do it on Snapseed, which is totally free. So,
all right, very cool.
Awesome shot.
Thanks, Millen. Always appreciate you entering and giving us your good information. All right, up next is Christina Binge with this shot of a flower. Here we go, Christina Binge. She says, Rosebud, one of many, taken in my garden, messing around with natural lighting while working with flowers for more artful-looking floral images.
Gotcha. So yeah, and Christina, I think, has been experimenting. She shows up here and chat with us usually. I think this is a wonderful attempt, Christina. I don't think it's like the best photo that you've submitted, but I always tell people, don't submit your best stuff because we don't have stuff to talk about. And it seems a little soft in the focus to me. I don't know, Mike, if you're seeing the same thing that I am. And I think this is another candidate for portrait. And just simply, I would give the suggestion to move back a little bit, maybe go for a portrait composition here with more space on the top of the rose. So you have that beautiful dark green in the back, which is absolutely gorgeous. And the rose is perfect. I'd put that in, keep it in the center is fine, but in the lower thirds, give yourself that nice negative space to support your subject, which is the rose, and it'll be like the rosebud is reaching up to the void, right? And then that's your story kind of that you could go with. Other than that, if you've got a story planned, Christina, then try to think of your composition of how that you can portray that story with your composition. So I don't know that because it just says you were messing around. So I'm just giving you ideas to further your messing around a little bit. So.
Nope. All right, good. So let's move on to next image from Debbie Henry. And Debbie says,
"Look at that cool dude."
Yeah. And she, one of the things I love about Debbie is she usually has a really nice depth of field. I love that blur that she does, and she says here what she's using the Canon 200 2.8. That's what's helping her with that. But she says mating season for alligators and lizards too. So that's what's happening here with this lizard is probably a male lizard. I'm not an expert on lizards, but I'm guessing it's a male trying to attract mates. And for me, if he's the star of the image, I would have liked to have seen a tighter shot on him.
Yeah, so let's talk about composition and lending to stories. So she's got a fence in there. So that's telling us that, it's not an urban area, but it's a place where humans are at, right? Because that specifies it. So these little guys are he's kind of showing off his colors right now. He's kind of wild, but he's also daring enough that I'm going to just hang out where the humans are because I got to find my lady. She's around here somewhere. So I think having that in there really tells that bit of the story. I love the cactuses because that gives me an idea that we're in the Southwest, maybe somewhere. That really, is a nice feature. Her bokeh and everything, like you said, Mike, that's awesome. But I agree with you that get a little tighter here. Maybe position those flowers in the back so that they're kind of complementing so it might mean you got down a little lower and a little closer. And again, easy for me to say. I don't, know. When I was in Yosemite, we had these little guys all over the place. And the minute they saw you, they were like, they disappear. You'd be like, did I just see a lizard? I just saw a lizard, right? But you couldn't prove it because you couldn't see it, like it was there and gone. So if these guys are the same, then it might be really hard for her to get close. And there's some tricks that you can do. You can position your camera in a spot. You can, remote trigger it with a Wi-Fi thing, or maybe just a shutter release so you can stand back a little bit. With most animals, I've found that if you just stand really still, they kind of don't feel threatened. But if you move your eyes around, if you're flicking your camera up and down, one thing that
It's almost like if you move still, they don't see you.
yeah, so it's exactly right. But one thing that animals see, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it when I do it. You see that glare?
The glare, yeah.
You know what that means to a lizard? That means that there is a bird of prey around.
Yeah.
That means a predator, right? They look for the flash of the eye. That's how they see that. It's like that. Their peripheral looks for that. So you got to be careful with your lens, because I know with birds especially, and we're at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about birds. But okay. I know it's like with them, the minute they see, I know I go out and shoot. We have a great blue heron out back here, and the minute he sees that lens come up, his head turns right to me. And if I drop my lens and then pick it up again and that flashes once, he's gone. Just like that. I have to keep my lens and not move it. And they get confused. He's like, is that another bird? Is that? They don't know. So they don't move, and that's your chance.
Well, there's safety mechanism is get out of there, flight.
It's exactly right. Yeah. So I don't know if these little guys do that or not. I just think I'm with you. Tighter is better here, especially if he's the star of the show. Make sure that everything else is just a supporting role. And right now, like the cactuses and things in the background, everything's bigger than him in the screen.
Right.
You just want to make him a little bigger. That's all.
All right. Thanks, shot. Debbie. All right. Up next is this image from Jose Matutina, I think.
Matutina. That's how you say that.
And he says, hiking with the sun and foliage. Okay. I brought my IR converted Sony, and then he has using a fisheye lens. Let's see, white balance tweaks in Capture One, and then channel switched in Photoshop. This is at the Holly Gym Trail and Falls. O'Neill Regional Park.
Yep.
And I'm a fan of it. I like infrared. It's a fun thing to shoot. Yep. Until you figure out how to edit and get the white balance, it can be a pain to do that whole, conversion. But it's a fun thing to shoot. I've never really been a huge fan of fish eyes. That's just not my thing. He does a decent job here with the fisheye. That's not my thing, but I do like how infrared really, and he's got the one with the false colors. Infrared could be just black and white basically, but he's got the one here with the false colors where it's really making the sky much more dramatic and the trees, this pink color or whatever it is. I think mine infrared would have made those trees white, make it almost look like snow.
Yeah, I think you shoot with a 720 nanometer. Yeah. That's what I shoot with as well. I prefer the white. Everything green is white, everything blue is black.
Right.
That's kind of my favorite look. But the false color is interesting too. I have a friend who shoots false color once in a while with the 665, and it's a different look, and it's just IR is complete personal preference. And I've talked about before, I like to grab my IR in my wide angle lens just to go out and have fun, because the cool thing about IR is that you can shoot in bright daylight. Yes. In fact, you get the better shots if you shoot in bright daylight, but you also, it gets more light into the camera than a normal standard lens. IR is much more powerful than all the rest of the spectrum is to your cameras. So I can go out and shoot at f/16 handheld and still get 1/800th of a second and at ISO 100, which is amazing.
That's if you have a converted camera, because if you're shooting with a regular camera that you put a filter on, you may be middle of the day and a 6 second.
Right. Shutter. And so, a little talk about that too. So keep in mind that doesn't always work. In fact, on most cameras anymore today does not work. Most cameras have a coating on their sensor that filters UV and it filters IR both. Both of those are eliminated from the bandwidth of color, so they can get a more pure color. And so by you putting a filter on the front, you're really not it's being unfiltered. You're just making it red, really. By the time it gets back in the camera, it's unfiltered. I did that for a number of years and thought, yeah, I'm doing IR. And I wasn't actually, until I converted a camera myself, wasn't getting true IR. And once I saw like the actual IR in the camera, I was like, whoa, this is amazing, you know? So yeah, it's definitely a fun thing. And especially if you get stuck, you know, in a rut as a photographer, I highly suggest get a camera. It doesn't have to be an expensive camera. Get any camera, get it converted to IR, and just go out and have that in there and have fun with it. I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the fisheye here, only because the ground is distorted. And with a fisheye, the technique is to get the sky and then get the ground plane to still be flat. And the way you do that is by lowering your perspective and bringing the horizon closer to the middle of the lens. Because in a fisheye, as you get closer to the middle of the lens, things straighten out. As you get to the outside of the lens, things curve.
That makes sense.
So so by him getting closer to the ground here and putting the horizon, he still could have got all of that beautiful sky and the tree above, but he could have positioned himself so that the horizon was straight. And I think that would have, to me, it's a little kind of using the fisheye for strange composition, and I don't think it lends to the beauty of the image, really.
You mentioned converting cameras. So I took, if you have older cameras that, just a few years old or, 5 years old, like this is a 12 megapixel D2X, still a great camera. I mean, it is a pro body and everything. It's huge. But it's not worth much if you go to sell it. So you're only going to get a couple $100 for it. A camera that's still really good. So I had this one converted to IR by LifePixel, and now I have another use for it. And for me, a lot of the stuff you're shooting is in the morning or in the afternoon. In the middle of the day, you're just going back home or doing whatever and waiting. IR gives you a chance to shoot in the middle of the day.
Yep, it sure does. Yep.
All right, last image we have for tonight is this one from Daniel Sandberg. Just so happened I picked the two from the same guy, but we'll have more coming up. And he says, Durden North Beach sunrise. I love this photo. I like the tone of the sky and the silhouette of the chairs and everything that's going on there.
Yeah, I think that too, the two piers coming in from each side is cool. It kind of gives you that arms wrapped around feeling of a late summer day on the beach. I noticing a little bit of haloing in the photo. Daniel, this is by far much better than the Milky Way shot that you submitted. This is definitely tells the story of a summer's day on the beach. I think you nailed it with all of that. Just be careful when you're pulling your highlights down in Lightroom. Since they've changed some of the algorithms in Lightroom, if that's what you're using or whatever program, when you pull highlights down, it tends to make these halos between dark and light areas, which you're getting around this roof here. It just makes everything look like, it makes like it gives an artificial glow, which I think takes away from the beautiful starkness of this. It can also make a picture look kind of fuzzy and maybe not in focus, which it is in focus, but it's one of those things that and if people don't know what causes it, like if you did an HDR here, HDR can cause it if you're not processing in 32-bit. 16-bit HDR is well known for having halos. In fact, that's one of the main reasons why I teach 32-bit HDR, because it doesn't have halos and it's very difficult to get them using 32-bit. So it's just one of those things that if it was HDR, I don't know as I would have taken an HDR of this, because if you did, you took like most of the dynamic range out of it, which I think is what you should have done. Yeah, it's the right thing to do here. The silhouette is perfect. So maybe if you have the exposure where that's closer to, maybe just try processing just that. If you didn't use HDR and you did do the post-processing and you pulled down your highlights, if you try boosting your highlights back up and then pulling your whole exposure itself back down, you'll lose the halos, but you'll get the same similar effect to what you're trying to achieve.
What do you think of the crop? Because this is a different crop.
Well, I absolutely love. I'm a huge proponent of panoramic crops. I think the wider the better. You know, my monitors are all ultra wide here. I just think that so it's a cinema crop is what we call it, but that's exactly what it is. It gives an epic kind of look to any landscape, and it can. Man, I've seen some panoramas of portraits and wedding photos that have been stunning, where it isn't a close up on the bride and groom. It shows them, standing on a beautiful, veranda overlooking an old Italian city, and it's a wide, it looks like a movie. I mean, and who wouldn't want that for their wedding photo,
That's awesome.
So it's just, I think that that wider sense just gives us that cinematography kind of look. Do me a favor also, Daniel, when you're going through and checking this, make sure you always check for your dust spots, because there's a dust spot on your shot. So make sure you check for those.
Where's the dust spot?
It's exactly opposite the if you look over on the right hand third, about it's a pretty large ghosty spot right there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's showing up pretty good on both of mine. So
okay. Awesome image, and he's going to have. I think he has another one that's going to be in a future show. I know Nancy, who's out there, yours is in a future show. So, like I said, if we didn't do yours tonight, it's coming up. Don't worry about it. We'll do it in one of the other shows. That was the last image that we had for tonight. But before we head out, let's go on over to this guy's page here. Whoops, wrong thing. Hold on. We'll do that again. Let's go
getting dizzy, Mike. You're moving me all over the place.
Let's go over here to the explorographer.com. And if you ever wonder, what does explorographer stand for? What does it stand for, AD?
Explore, photograph, write, and repeat. And it's a little of each of those letters cut out of all of that stuff. And I came up with that after I came up with the explorographer part. So it was kind of a weird coincidence that it worked out. But yeah, and I just changed up my website a little bit.
It did look a little different.
Yeah, we're self-hosting our downloads and everything now, so I can better keep track of that. Something we can talk about on a future show of the unraid talk, as we like to talk about. But yeah, the big thing right now is I'm giving away stuff. So
giving away stuff, yes. So let's talk about that. Where would I go on the site? Because I know we tweeted about it on.
Right there, right in the lower left-hand corner, that thing with all the that, and you click on that thing. And it comes up with this nifty little box. Please don't let it take forever to load.
No, and you got to remember it's probably going to be a little bit slower because I'm doing a lot on my end. So, this slowness may be a little bit on my end.
Geez, I hope so, man. That is really slow. It's usually faster than that.
Yeah, all the kids are gone, but still, I'll refresh it again.
It was my site down. There you go. Wouldn't be the first time. Oh, no. It came right up for me. Popped right up.
Well, while we're waiting for that, we'll go back over to us.
All right.
That way. There we go. So we'll come back to that. We'll look at this as my
that one.
And we'll talk about this one. So over on Patreon, if you're over on Patreon, I'm on Patreon not as a person. I'm not a patron. What is it whenever you subscribe to somebody, but you're not?
Well, a lot of people call it fan support, whatever. Okay. It's a patron.
I'm there as a fan. So I'm there as a fan. And if you go over to thecreators.com over on Patreon, you have AD's page there. And I noticed, I hadn't watched this one yet. Your latest one is easy focus stacking. In Photoshop and Lightroom. So I haven't watched that one yet, but you have that you just did recently. And if you want to become a patron, I think I said that right, of ADs, you have multiple levels. You can do anywhere from $1 all the way up to the ultimate $75. And there's no contract. You can do it for 1 month, forever, anytime you want. AD goes through here and tells you what you get. But one thing by being a patron is you get access to his live videos that you do, right, AD?
Yeah. The next one is going to be the 5 apps thing that we're going to do. So
Very good.
yeah, next Monday, tomorrow. Tomorrow.
All right.
I got to get it ready for tomorrow.
For tomorrow, yes. So here is the Great Lightroom preset giveaway.
And it's not showing. What's going on? It's not showing.
What do you mean?
The entry form isn't showing.
Let me refresh. That could all be my. I've noticed this computer.
No, what's going on? There's a big Gleam entry form there. Where is it?
Are you seeing it on your side?
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's a thing where I got to be signed in, and I didn't know that. That would be explain why we don't have a ton of entries in there. Let me find out if I sign out what happens.
Okay.
Just double check for you guys. I like to make sure it's right for you guys. So, all right, we'll go back there.
While you're doing that, you are. When is the deadline? Is when? End of August.
Yeah. So let me just tell everybody: if you go to that post, which is the very first post currently, the one that Mike's looking at there, it's called the Great Lightroom Preset Giveaway. I'm giving away 10 copies of my Lightroom preset pack, which is 44 premium Lightroom presets that I design myself. There's stuff that I use in my photos and my processing, all sorts of stuff. All you have to do is there'll be a little form that pops up. You just follow me on Twitter, you retweet it on Twitter, and you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And that's it. You get 3 chances to win just by doing that. And at the end of the month, September 1st, I'm going to be drawing those 10 winners. So I think it's a $19, $20, thing in my store. So normally, this is all to commemorate. I'm actually releasing a whole new pack. I've got them all done. I got to ship them out to a few people to beta test for me just to make sure they're working the way I think they are. But they're going to be coming out next month as well. So
okay,
got a bunch of cool stuff.
So those 3 things, is it 3 entries or do the 3 things in 1 entry?
No, you do the 3 things, you get 3 entries.
Okay.
So you don't have to do them all. Actually, I think you do. I think they're all mandatory.
Okay.
I don't remember.
But those are 3 really easy things to do that you can go out there and do that. Yep. And just go over to explorographer.com and you'll see the article right here in the lower left-hand corner. Very first one.
I wonder why that's not loading for you, buddy. I have to check with some of my other friends, make sure it's loading for everybody. I did change some stuff. So, do you have a browser cache you can clear?
Can do
Can we troubleshoot right here while we're on?
I can do this. Clear that cache.
Yeah, I just cleared mine too. It might be an ad blocker thing too. I don't know. I have my ad blocker on my own page though, so I don't. Oh no, I don't. I actually have my ad blocker turned off for my page. That might be it. I might have to put that in the thing that if you're not seeing the form, turn your ad block. There's no ads in it, so I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can troubleshoot some more in post show.
Cool.
But anyway, you can go there. If you follow AD on Twitter, you can find it there too. And I will find out what's going on here. And I think we've posted it also on our Facebook page, so you can see it there too.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. So follow AD over on explorographer.com and over on Patreon. And then you can get access to all that. We'll be back and we'll talk about it in a post show, but we'll be back either next week or the week after or something like that, coming up to talk about this, part two of 3 of the June images, show number 33. So until next show, keep shooting. Good night, everybody.